Catch the vibe and the feeling. Guys, this is how we live it. Ghost, yeah. Left, right, front, and back.
I'm just gonna start us off. Welcome to our Juneteenth meetup. We are here to celebrate Juneteenth together as a community. To learn, to grow, to support one another. We have some incredible people here with us today speaking through their own experiences and their own expertise. We are so grateful to host each person that is here, whether you're speaking, whether you're part of the community who will be speaking later and asking questions. Thank you for coming and celebrating with us and throughout the rest of the month of June. This meetup is a donation-based event, and each month we choose an organization who is doing work that directly relates to the topic that we're working through in our meetup. And we chose the Equal Justice Initiative this month. They created the National Memorial for Peace and Justice that opened in April 2018. And it's actually the nation's first memorial dedicated to the legacy of enslaved Black people. And despite the history of this country, which we are all familiar with to some degree, what is really amazing about our Black brothers and sisters, our mothers, our fathers, our ancestors, is that no one person, no one system or idea can steal or oppress the joy that breathes through our Black bodies. And that's what this meetup is about. I want to take a moment right here to call out my friend and fellow artist who's a collaborator, Michael Oloyede. He's the digital lead for Creative Collective, New York City, who won a Webby Award for their thread about why you deserve the day off on Juneteenth. We're putting these resources in the chat. This is a space for healing, for celebration, for storytelling, for connection. It's a space to practice telling your truth and expressing how you feel authentically. And something that I really value personally is constantly giving people space to share their voice and step into their power. And this means helping each other find the resources that we need to continue learning and continue supporting each other as we show up.
Thank you so much for that, Lily. Right now, we just like to take moments of silence to honor different groups of people each month. And today we would like to take a moment of silence to honor the abolitionists and those who fought to put an end to slavery and those who are still fighting for justice and equality today, for the countless lives lost in that fight. Taking a moment for the Black trans queer community who we love and support so dearly. Also a moment for Black women who hold joy and strength and who give so much of themselves to their families and this world. This moment of silence is for the ancestors that we all have. We are their dreams living in flesh and blood. We are the change they wish to see, and we stand in their power going forward with the dreams that they had for us. So please also share in the chat who else you would like to honor with this moment of silence.
I'm just gonna jump in and introduce myself officially to all of you. My name is Lily Alice Walker Stiefel. I am the CEO and founder of The Mixed Space. I use she, her pronouns. I am the child of interracial marriage and a third culture kid to Germany. So my body and my experiences bridge the people identifying as Black from New Orleans, part of the African diaspora, and I identify as mixed. I'm a Leo, and I learned a really beautiful tradition from my mentor, Tanya Pinkins, who honors the women in her matriarchal line, which I'm gonna lead, and then I'm gonna add names and people who are part of my ancestral lineage that are not part of my matriarchal line. So that, for me, that goes, my name is Lily. I am the daughter of Linda, who is the daughter of Margaret. I called her Nani, who is the daughter of Florence. And I wanna honor Gail Cabral, Carol Walker, and my auntie Carla.
you, Lily. I'm going to take a moment right now to introduce myself to everyone. Hi, my name is Ariel Bastida. I go by she, her, hers pronouns. I identify as Latina and mixed. I'm an actress and an artist when I'm not doing this type of work. Following Lily's amazing example of naming the lineage on your matriarchal line, I am the daughter of Laura, who is the daughter of Rose, who is the daughter of Mary. And I would also like to pay honor to Esther Bastida and Christina Martinez. Just a little quick land acknowledgement for me. I am in Chicago, which means that I am on the traditional unceded homelands of the Council of Three Fires. The Ojibwa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi nations, however, other tribes such as the Miami, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Sac, Fox, also called this land that I call home as well. And yeah, so now we are going to go over some community guidelines that we like to talk about, just to make sure that we are having like a really good space and a good sort of facilitated conversation. So the first one is engagement is encouraged, right? So please raise your hand, drop emojis. You can do emojis on your screen if you'd like to. Just let us know that you like what's going on. Oops, ouch. So if someone says something that doesn't really match their intention, feel free to say ouch, which gives that person an opportunity to say oops and sort of redirect what they were trying to say. Instead of saying I'm sorry, we say I'm sassy or I'm sexy, just to sort of curb that tendency, specifically within women, to always apologize. If you are someone like me who can talk for hours, that's amazing. But also be thankful. Be thinking to step out of the space, just to allow some other more timid folks to step in and share their thoughts as well with us. And also just remember your identifiers, which is number 5, right? So your pronouns, racial identifiers, anything else that you feel comfortable with, naming yourself so we know how to properly identify and call on you or talk to you.
I'll keep going. So number 6, mean what you say. So obviously we cannot control what other people, how they respond, but we can make sure that we're putting thought into our words and we're holding ourselves accountable for what we're saying. Number 7 is confidentiality. So that means share your learning, but not necessarily someone else's privacy or someone else's like personal information, and ask permission from that person before you're sharing outside of the group. Number 8 is disagree with the idea, not the person. So this is a space for constructive dialogue. We do often disagree with each other, but let's avoid making personal attacks and focus on I statements. Number 9 is moments of growth. We as moderators, we do feel like conflict is an opportunity for shared growth, and we believe that if we can hold ourselves to these guidelines, that we all can grow together. And number 10 is, if you like it, let us know. Please hold up your thumb in the camera or use your reactions to show that you agree to these community guidelines, and you will follow them as we move forward into the discussion. Thank you. I see thumbs up. I see thumbs up. I am going to introduce our first speaker, Kenja. Dr. Kenja McCray is an associate professor of history at Atlanta Metropolitan State College. She teaches and researches U.S. and African American history, social justice movements, and women's leadership. We are really, really grateful that she has joined us here today to discuss the history of Juneteenth and explore ways to celebrate. Dr. McCray is also sharing her Juneteenth syllabus, which we are linking in the chat. So let's all please welcome Dr. McCray.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you. I go by she, her, hers. I would like to acknowledge my ancestors as well. I put my maternal ancestors in the chat. Just ran out of time in terms of the paternal ancestors, but I acknowledge them as well. And I'd like to acknowledge that I am living on land that was stolen from the Cherokee and Muskogee nations. And I'll get started. So I titled today's discussion, Juneteenth is a big day around here. And I'd like to, I'll share with you where I got that from a little bit later in the talk. Okay, so June 19th, 1865 is commemorated as the day the last enslaved African Americans were freed in the state of Texas in the United States. we're celebrating beyond Texas borders now. So the emancipation celebration that comes out of June 19th, 1865 is often looking at, this is the last, or seeing it as the last day the last enslaved African Americans were freed in the United States. June 19th was for a while remembered as Emancipation Day, but Juneteenth, it became known as Juneteenth. And I think we all understand that's a mashup of June and 19th. It is considered the oldest nationally celebrated observance of the ending of chattel slavery in the United States. Although Abraham Lincoln's administration had issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which took effect on January 1st, 1863, declaring that enslaved people in Confederate states were forever free, and that Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Union General Ulysses S. Grant on April 9th, 1865. And although the 13th Amendment was actually ratified on December 6th, 1865, rebel soldiers in Texas continued the fighting well into the spring of 1865. So they actually won the last Civil War battle on Texas soil on May 13th, 1865. And that was the Battle of Palmetto Ranch near Brownsville. Some African Americans likely had heard rumors about freedom through Galveston, Texas, if they were in Galveston, Texas, if they were in other parts of Texas. But following General Kirby Smith, the commander of the Confederate Army of Trans-Mississippi, following his surrender in the face of large-scale desertions, General Gordon Granger, it is said, rode into Galveston, Texas on June 19th, 1863 to issue his Special Order Number 3, which declared enslaved African Americans in Texas free and set out guidelines that said they were equal socially, they were equal politically. They should be paid for their work. I don't know if it said socially, but politically and economically, they should be paid for their work. The news of emancipation and the celebrations, Juneteenth celebrations, spread all across Texas and beyond. In Texas, Juneteenth was initially celebrated in churches, and then it eventually moved into public spaces. In fact, there is a new book out by Annette Gordon Reed. It's called Juneteenth. It's a slim book and a really, really interesting read. And she talks about 4 men who bought land in Houston, Texas, that was specifically set aside for the celebration of Juneteenth. It became known as the Emancipation Park, and Juneteenth was celebrated there is celebrated there to this day. It was the land was a segregated park for a while, that served the Black community, but this is a public space that is known, that is associated with the celebration of Juneteenth. And then one theory is that Juneteenth initially spread beyond Texas as African Americans migrated north, migrated west on the Great Migration beginning around the time of World War I. I found that there are specific themes that people engage when they're celebrating Juneteenth. So I had a few pictures, the Emancipation Proclamation, Robert E. Lee's surrender to General Sherman at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia. This is what General Gordon Granger looks like, and this is one of the books that I put on my Juneteenth syllabus. Interesting book. This is a picture of a Texas Juneteenth celebration in the year 1900 that I found in What is Juneteenth by Henry Louis Gates. And these are the themes that I have found that people outside of Texas engage around Juneteenth celebrations. So there are themes around liberation, right? And often what people say is that Juneteenth is celebrated as a precursor to July 4th. But also this focus on freedom, on liberation, on the United States getting toward fulfilling the fullness of its ideals. Togetherness is another theme that I found. Togetherness was a central theme in Annette Gordon Reed's work. And Dr. Gordon Reed discussed Juneteenth as like a family reunion. And we, a lot of us know how important family reunions are in the Black community. She also reflected on how with the food waste, food is another a theme around Juneteenth. Say, for instance, all-night barbecues. A lot of people talk about all-night barbecues. Annette Gordon Reed talked about goat being a popular dish that people barbecued in Texas, even though her family didn't do it. But a colleague of mine, SD Nina Dillard, talks about how her family, for as long as she could remember and beyond, get together on Juneteenth in Macon, Georgia, and they barbecue a whole pig, and that takes all night. Annette Gordon Reed talks about how, in hindsight as an adult, she really found that this time together, cooking, preparing very labor-intensive or time-intensive foods is actually time spent with family. That was fleeting. A lot of the people have passed away now. Black achievement is another theme for Juneteenth. I just recently saw where a man in Chicago gives tours of famous, and notable or not so famous sites that you should know in terms of Black history. And a lot of the sites that he's showing, like chess records and things like that, are centered on Black achievement. Black creativity is another theme. And this particular theme came out in an oral history that I was able to look at. And the oral history was conducted by Jasmine C. Howard. She's a doctoral student at Michigan State College. And her discussion is with a Mr. I.D. Henderson. And he gives a talk about how Juneteenth was celebrated in his community. And he talked about music and how central music was. So that's one expression of creativity. And another expression of creativity is dance that he discussed. And I'm not sure, let's see. If I open this, can you see my screen with Mr. Henderson on it? No? Okay, I have to stop share and reshare. Make sure I share my sound. Oh, it was already done.
So, how did y'all celebrate Juneteenth?
How did we celebrate?
Yeah. As a kid, what are your memories of Juneteenth?
Well, Juneteenth is a big day around here. Every community got some eating going on. Mm-hmm. You got the music, and shoot, I was a youngster. I'd go from here, I'd go from Keltis to Lufkin Land, mm-hmm. Everywhere else told me, get me some red soda water, taste their meat. Eat much I could eat.
So that is a bit of his interview. You hear him talking about the music, and you hear him talking about the foodways. So red soda water is a big one, or as some people say, red drink. Red beans and rice, red velvet cake. And does anybody remember or know what red symbolizes with Juneteenth, those red foods? I know it was on the Mixed Spaces website. Does anybody remember? Put it in the chat if you remember. Put it in the chat. Let's see who remembers. Okay. And the legacy of enslavement is also a common theme. And people use Juneteenth to talk about the legacy of and reflect on the legacy of enslavement. Annette Gordon Reed talked about one of the legacies of enslavement being racial hierarchies, the racial caste system, some people would call it. And that is a really, really important space, I think, for us to revisit at Juneteenth and talk about in terms of the legacy of chattel enslavement. And so because one of the main themes is liberation and freedom, I'd love to know in the chat what freedom means to you. What does freedom mean to you? And if you celebrate Juneteenth, what themes do you focus on, or what themes does your community or family focus on? Do they focus on liberation? Do they focus on Black achievement? Do they focus on multiculturalism, coming together? One thing Annette Gordon Reed pointed out was in her family, they didn't just eat the barbecue and have the red soda water, which she said she couldn't have soda when she was little. She just binged on soda during Juneteenth. But she also talked about having hot tamales in her family. And she expressed that this was an interesting, very Texas way of engaging foodways on Juneteenth, because it really connected with the Native American Indian foodways that were carried through by Mexicans and Mexican Americans. And for me, I always teach in my classes that the roots of American culture come from at least 3 places: Africa, Europe, and Native America. And having that barbecue, the red velvet cake, and even hot tamales really symbolizes how Juneteenth it reflects the roots of American culture, the deepest roots of American culture, and can really be a time for us to come together. I'd also love to know what you would put on your Juneteenth playlist. I ended with, Okay, so thank you very much. I think I'll look in the chat and see what your responses are. Maybe we can talk about them in Q&A, and I'll share my Juneteenth syllabus if it hasn't been shared already. And this came from a Black Twitter Historians Juneteenth chat. It was called a knowledge drop, so I'll share the link to that as well. Thank you so much again for having me.
Thank you so much, Kenja. Please, everyone, keep in mind, if you have questions for Kenja, you can ask them in the chat, and then we will actually have a community Q&A at the very end, middle end of our meetup today, so we can have all those questions and we can ask Kenja them for you, or you can ask them to her yourself. So next,
Ariel, I'm gonna interrupt you one time. This was not planned, but we don't have time to clap. Also, clapping on Zoom is awkward, but I would like to propose, after every speaker and everything that we're doing, we do one community breath. So I'm going to invite you, breathe in together, hold for a sec, and breathe out as a way to just process like what has been offered and what has been shared, so that we can move on and really like fully acknowledge. So on a count of 3, we're going to breathe in. 1, 2, 3. And exhale. Thank you. Floor back to you, Ariel.
Thank you, Lily. That was much needed, and just another great reminder to please take care of yourself, as we know that these conversations and even sometimes these spaces are taxing for sure. Next, we have Ricky Prestige Leverett Jr., a 2-time self-published author, motivational speaker, spiritual teacher, and historian, He specializes in African American history, mind science, meditation, motivation, metaphysics, and psychology. Ricky is here today to speak about history, slavery, and is also sharing motivation for the next generation on how to change the future. Please welcome Ricky Prestige Leverett Jr.
Thank you all. Thank you all. I appreciate that great intro, bringing me in to share with the people. And I'm so excited to be here. First of all, I'm really feeling the vibe. I really like the energy. I really like how you all have it set up. And I think this is a good space for a lot of people to be able to, learn some history, maybe something they never heard before. So I appreciate you all. First, I would like to acknowledge that. Like she said, my name is Ricky Prestige Leverett Jr. I'm an author and a motivational speaker. I wrote a book called Mind Alignment, Wake Up Your Stolen Greatness Through Mind Power. It just deals with the mental power, goes into the law of attraction, metaphysics, and different things like that. And also I have a children's book, Amir's Hidden Superpower, which is a children's book about the mind power as well. And it's targeted towards African-American children because my main focus is to bring the mental aspect of what has happened to us to the forefront, or let people know that they already have a power that resides within them. So that goes straight into what my speech is basically about. I like to call this the ghost of the plantation, the ghost of the plantation. And I'll explain that as I go on, as we build onto the speech. Like they did before, I do also would like to acknowledge my ancestors, or take a moment just to put that energy out, because they are with us. They are walking with us. They are proud of us. They're proud of you for being a part of this and spreading this message and, representing for them. So that's a great thing. And I like to, do that first there. And typically we pour libations just to show, homage to the ancestors. So that's a good look that you guys do that here. But going into the speech directly, don't really have too much to say directly about Juneteenth, because I more so want to paint a picture of that particular time in history, what was really going on, because a lot of times we seem to not be able to kind of keep up to what really actually happened, because we can't really picture a time such as that in our history, especially this generation. But it wasn't long ago. And that's where I'll go into the ghost of the plantation. These times weren't that long ago. Only 4 or 5 generations have went. We still have certain family members that were slaves. And where I'm at currently is Augusta, Georgia. And I'm not too far away from the actual slave plantations that were once where my ancestors were at. The city was actually called Leverett, Georgia. It was a prominent, I would say, quote unquote, slave master there. And that's why this subject touches me so deeply. And it's almost like my call of duty and our call of duty to keep that light shed on there. And it's beautiful that it's beginning to do that so much. So as far as it goes with the history lesson, we all have an understanding, like she explained prior to me, that what Juneteenth is really about. But I want to go a little deeper into it, because I think we get a fluffed up story. So I think I'm in a space where I can share some truth with you all. And that's what I'm going to do. I think this is the perfect location for that. First, we got to go back. Let's just go back with each other. Let's go back. Let's just think of these times. I'm in Georgia, so I can still see the cotton fields up the street from me, matter of fact. So you can picture this time. You could picture just being in those situations. Wasn't buildings around, it wasn't businesses around and things like that for a slave to just be able to escape. So it's a lot of woods here in Georgia and Texas and other places. So that just gives you an idea of what the setting was really like at that particular time. Now, when we paint the picture of Juneteenth, a lot of times people like to bring in the Emancipation Proclamation, which did play a major role in the freedom of the slavery. But I like to shed a light. Like I say, I'm here to speak a little truth to you all. I like to spread a light on what actually was the reason behind the Emancipation Proclamation. A lot of times people think it was just because of the cold-heartedness or the wrong of slavery, but it actually went deeper than that. A reporter or editor during the time of 1863, 1864, going around that time. His name was Greeley. He was an editor of the New York Tribune. It was a white gentleman. He was an abolitionist against slavery in the Confederate States. So he would go and make letters. He made an open letter to Lincoln. And he was talking about making demands and implying that freedom would need to come to the slaves. Now, this is what the quote that Lincoln actually said. If I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that to make sure that the Union would win the war. So although it's a big thing, the Emancipation Proclamation, we have to really put the tense that it was used in that situation. It was more of a political move. It was more of a war strategy. It was more of a thing of the Confederates were more powerful at that time because they had the free labor. So it makes you really, look deeper into it. Of course, as we continue on, I want to go into the actual letter being read in Juneteenth. Now, this was General Gordon's order from the President Abraham Lincoln to come down there and let them know that they were free. Because during that time, one of the things that I found was wild about it, or a fact about it, was the Confederate slave soldiers were actually out there in Galveston, Texas. If people are familiar with it, it's like an island. So they were segregated basically a long way away from the Union. Now, at that time, it wasn't any cars and things like this, so the message was harder to get to the people. And the Confederate soldiers actually built a fort. The slave soldiers built a fort around Galveston, Texas, to block the Union from coming in, and the Union were actually the ones there to free them. And that goes back to the ghost of the plantation, that actual mental part of what slavery really does. Now, the aftermath of the order being read, I want to actually, like I said, I wanted to paint a picture. So I want to actually go to some of the quotes that were said. I'm going to read it so you can get an actual full account of some slaves that were actually there at that time when it originally got read. One of the slaves mentioned that when it first got read, they were excited and everybody was partying, everybody was happy about it. But everybody wasn't happy about it that was actually a slave owner. Many people had different reactions to it. And as we see that, and we know, if we're honest with ourselves, we know that slavery continued on years after that. But that was a mark, and that's a good time for us to shed the light onto slavery in a good stepping point. One of the slaves once, he said, when my oldest brother heard we were free, he gave a shoot and jumped the high fence and grabbed me and hugged me. Brothers, don't expect us to, you'll ever see me anymore. I'm going to freedom. And they say they were saying freedom as if freedom was an actual place. All they knew is that they wanted to get away from that bondage that they were in then. A lot of the actual people that ended up being free, they stayed because we going back into the ghost of the plantation. Many of the people actually begged to still stay on the plantation because they didn't know anything other than that. Like we say, paint the picture of what's around them. They only know what they see. And slavery was much more mental than physical. I like to deal with the mind in certain types of programming that goes into making a person do what you actually want them to do without even putting your hands on them. Or maybe it will go to that point, but the main thing is just to mentally disable them. So although they were in captivity, a lot of them begged to stay. And that's a hard thing to think about and to fathom, but it makes sense. Now, when we go into the ghost of the plantation, I'm referring to the mental, the thing that you can't see. You could see the field, you could see the work being done, you can see the cotton, but you cannot see the mental state that people are on when that's the only thing that they can see or believe. And that has a way of weaving itself into the next generation and generations to come. And that same weaving that that African Americans had as a bondage mind state, or a mind state of being a second-class citizen, it weaved itself into the next generation. And the hate and the oppression that the master wanted to put towards African people, it weaved through the generations. And that's one of the topics that I see that you guys talk about a lot, about intergenerational. And I'm glad you brought that up. Because when I say about the ghost of the plantation, it's still here. It still plays a major effect on the way we see ourselves, the way we view ourselves, the way that we are cautious in certain situations, the way that we're still being oppressed in certain spaces. But the only person that can truly free you is yourself when you free your mind. And that's whether if you have a racist, hateful heart, or if you have a heart or a mind to think you're second class. We all deserve freedom. We all do. Now, going into the weaving of the generations, into the trauma being weaved into the different generations, I like to go into some research and some resources that you all can use as well. Dr. Joy DeGruy, she has a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. In that book, she goes over that although slavery has affected generations prior to that, it still has a way of showing up to this day. It's very similar to PTSD, some of the same symptoms. But the thing is that it gets passed down generation after generation until at least one of them decides to heal. And I think that's where we're at right now. We have an opportunity to actually heal ourselves, to heal each other, to change the timeline that we exist on right now and switch it to another timeline of freedom for all. Because when we look outside, it's easy to see that a lot of hate is still involved. It's easy to see that it's a lot of oppression still involved. It's easy to see that it's a lot of programming on both sides. So what I would say to you on this platform is that we all have a role to play. We all have a position. We all have a duty to change and plant the seeds for the next generation. And I think this time in history should be a time known as a healing period. It's good to see that we are diverse in celebration, because what I've noticed about learning about other cultures, which I had a chance to do as a child, being in a predominantly white school, and I had to learn my history all over again, honestly. But I was able to see how things were and get a viewpoint from both ends. So I think this time, and people like you and me that are on this type of platform, it gives us a chance to come together and make this a multicultural thing and not just a Black thing, because this history affects us all. And our freedoms, I'm gonna end on this, our freedoms are fragile and it can't be taken lightly. So right now we have a choice. We can either go backwards on the timeline or we can create a whole new timeline. It's our choice. And I thank you all for listening. Once again, I'm Ricky Prestige Leverett Jr. And this has been beautiful, and I can't wait to hear everybody else and do the Q&A. Thank you all for spending this time with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. As we did with Kenja, I'm inviting us all to take a breath on a count of 3, breathing in. 1, 2, 3. Holding and exhaling. Okay. I am introducing Cris Eli Blak, who is an award-winning and internationally produced writer. He continues to create work that reflects the world that we live in with all of its different and diverse colors, creeds, and cultures. Cris, we are so lucky to have you here, and thank you for joining us and speaking with us and sharing about your artistic journey. And Cris also brought a very special monologue that he will be performing himself. So everyone welcome Cris Eli Blak.
Yes, thank you. Hello, my name is Cris Eli Blak, and firstly, I would like to acknowledge the soil I stand on, which does not belong to us, as well as the women in my family. I take any chance I can to acknowledge the fact that I was raised by the strongest, most beautiful Black woman on the planet. And so I am the son of Tanita, who is the daughter of Maria, who is the daughter of Dolores, and special love to my late aunt and to my sister. As was said, I am a writer, I am a playwright, which I fell into quite on accident because I was simply not seeing myself represented on the stages and screens that I was being drawn to. I was going to school and living around people from around the globe, African Americans, Africans, South Asians, Latinos, and they were the most ambitious, hardworking people on the planet. And I was witness to that. But then I would turn on TV and turn on the news. And on the news, they would be calling them criminals and rapists and the scum of our country. And on TV shows and in movies, they were either the gang members or the drug dealers or the prison snitch or something like that. And that just wasn't what I was seeing in those communities. And it was very clear that the people who were putting those products out were not people coming out of those communities. And so I saw two paths open up, one being I can sit and I can complain and say, well, I'm not seeing myself represented, or I could pick up a pen and represent myself and represent my family and my peers. Because the only reason we have that term underrepresented is because not enough people are fighting to represent those groups, and not enough people are being led into the rooms and the spaces to tell those stories and to represent those groups. And so instead of waiting for someone to let me sit at the table, I just kind of got a hammer and nail and started building my own damn table and telling the stories that I wanted to tell and the stories I grew up around, because at the end of the day, no one can tell your story but you. And so I am so grateful for the mixed space for allowing me to come today and tell my story, a little bit of it. Today, I will be performing a monologue I wrote entitled Rabbits and Foxes. So yeah. Being Black while living in white spaces, surrounded by white faces, is equivalent to being a rabbit in a den of foxes. You either do your best to keep quiet and hide from the predators around you, or you get eaten on sight. The rabbit could also attempt to blend in with the foxes, growl like them, walk like them, eat what they eat, which would be their own kind. But for the sake of survival, who could blame the rabbit? Besides, it's not the rabbit who chose to be born a rabbit. That's just how it came out. The rabbit may live its entire life wanting to be a fox because no one messes with foxes, rarely. The fox owns his corner in the animal kingdom. It is defined as one that eats, not one that is likely to be eaten. But the rabbit comes into this life knowing that it is on the menu. Still, it has to come out to eat, move around to live, but who's to say that a fox isn't waiting at the exit of the rabbit hole for its next meal? And the rabbit is fast, but not fast enough for the fox to forget about it. And if the rabbit escapes, the fox will just go after its cousin or its brother. I am the rabbit, living in a den of foxes. I was not taught about my food chain in science class when I was a kid, and neither were you. It's a hard thing to explain, but when you grow up seeing the people around you live a certain kind of life and yours is anything but, you start wanting to be a fox. See, the fox walks around unafraid, and I wanted to do the same, and I did for a long time. I made the foxes believe that I was worthy to be one of them, and it felt great. The very idea of walking with them, being accepted, that is what made me safe in environments that would make my father feel like he was signing his own death sentence. I chose the college I did for these reasons. I talked to the people I talked to for these reasons. I wanted them to know that I was worthy, because for my entire life, I was told that nothing but how I should watch out and be cautious and stay home. And if I wanted to go to prison, I could in 2 seconds, but I didn't want to. So why should I be a prisoner in my own home with my own family in my own neighborhood? I found it to be a ridiculous idea. I wanted freedom like the slaves. That was then, when I was sheltered behind the closed doors of my masquerade home, that I didn't see that the plantation was just waiting on the other side. Being Black while living in white spaces, surrounded by white faces, is equivalent to being a rabbit in a den of foxes. Being Black while living in white spaces, surrounded by white faces, is equivalent to being a slave trying to sleep in the master's bed, trying to wear his clothes and hold his whip. It is wanting to be it's not wanting to be free, but to be liked by he who beats you. I sound smart now. I've always tried to sound smart, but the more we try to sound like something, the more likely it is that we are anything but. I wanted to join a frat, honestly, because I thought I'd have the best chance there. I mean, there were no other brothers who were brothers, and I figured there'd have to be some sort of affirmative action rule in place. I mean, you have to let at least one in, and these guys, they were loved. All the girls loved them. They were tan and rich, and I wanted that life. I wanted the fox life, and they could see that better than anyone else. So I went through the whole initiation process. No big deal. I faced harder belts against my body in life. This was no problem. I was doing it so that they'd love me and carry me after it was through. We got to the very last stage of the process, and everyone had a different assignment, as they called it, very collegiate way of phrasing. My assignment was to walk around campus, and anytime I saw a pretty white girl, I was to go up to her and in my best colored boy voice, tell her that I was a nigger. They wanted me to say that I was a happy, white woman loving nigger. And for the first time in my life, I said no. But not because I didn't think it was true, but because I had just never heard someone say it out loud. And I realized that I would never be a fox, even if I walked alongside them. I was a rabbit in their hole, and they had their forks and knives prepped for feeding. I said no. And they didn't like that. They didn't like that their rabbit was saying no, and so they taught me what happens when a brown rabbit says no. I remember when I was a kid, the special would come on cable, and it was all about racism and stuff, and this little black girl, she was being bullied, and the bullies put white shoe polish all over her face for the obvious reasons, and I thought that was the most animated, unrealistic, over-exaggerated idea ever put to screen, until I found myself looking at myself after having the exact same thing done to me. And I died that day. No one seemed to notice. No one seemed to care. After all, I was there. I was present, but I was dead. I had a hollow trunk inside my body, and no one said my name, not once. Because it is harder to spot a rabbit than it is to spot a fox. The week it happened is the week that everything else happened in my city, in the city I went to school in. I watched it all with my IMAX screen eyes. And I may be bitter, but it isn't enough. Breonna Taylor barbecues aren't enough. Police car, caravan, statues carved by Confederate carnivores being overturned by the ropes that used to be around my neck. It's not enough. So why did you shut up when it got too cold outside? But you don't know me, so you don't listen to me. I sound smart, though. So maybe one day, someone will close their eyes and only listen to my voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, it's so hard. It's so hard for me. But we're gonna do it again. The breathing in together and the exhaling together. So on a count of 3, breathe in, 1, 2, 3, hold, and exhale.
Okay. Thank you for that breath, Lily. Thank you so much, Cris. As we can tell, that's why he's award-winning. That was absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Our next speaker was born and raised in Spain. Please welcome Carolina Nve Diaz, San Francisco. She is a medical anthropologist based in Boston, working in the Disparities Research Unit, Massachusetts General Hospital, and Harvard Medical School. She is Health and Wellness Coordinator for the Massachusetts Women of Color Coalition, and author of several articles in the Afrofuturistic novel, Mis Madres Son Estrellas. She is here to speak to us today about Black women in liberation. We are sending a link in the chat now to a great blog written by Carolina.
So thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. Can you hear me all well? It is a pleasure, an honor, a privilege to spend time with all of you. So I'm learning a lot. And right now I would like to share a story of liberation, which is very important to me, my own story. And I believe that each one of us has their own stories of liberation. So I really encourage you to share it when you have the opportunities, okay? Because we're making history as well. We are the daughters and the sons of our fathers, of our mothers. So we are continuing a legacy as well. So as beautiful Ariel mentioned, yeah, my name is Carolina Diaz, San Francisco. I go by she, her, hers. I'm gonna say here that I am connected to the histories of the women in my family in Equatorial Guinea, also the histories of Afro-Spanish women in Spain, the place where I was born and I grew up. The sisters and my brothers that I met in the United Kingdom and also in other countries in Europe, and also my family in Puerto Rico, Haiti, and Afro-Colombian women as well in Colombia, and of course here in the United States as well. I have a big family, I had to say. So I was born in Spain. My father is from Equatorial Guinea. I keep saying it, Equatorial Guinea was a Spanish colony. My father left the country in the 70s, moved to Spain, met my mother. So I think I am Hispano-Guinean, you know. Now myself, I consider myself as a Black woman, but it has taken a while for me to understand my Blackness and the responsibility of my identity. Actually, I left Spain when I was quite young. I moved to the UK, then I came here in the United States, always studying. That's something that I also appreciate, education. So that's something that has helped me. My education with me has been a very powerful tool for me to move in the world. So arrived in Rhode Island, and it was interesting there to note that I felt a little bit dizzy when I arrived in the United States because I felt that perhaps I have gone too far. I felt myself, I was too far from my home. But I went on, and then I actually wanted to conserve my language. I didn't want to lose my language, my Spanish mother tongue. So I made the effort to connect with the Spanish speaking communities. And I also realized that I learned about different accents, different ways of expressing, the evolution of language. So it was very interesting to learn that, and also to learn about my own interest to my own language. And also I wanted to learn or meet more communities, Black communities, Black individuals from the Black community. It was a necessity for me. So then I came here in Boston. I came here to Boston, and it was very interesting as well to note my change, because I vote for the first time, 2020. I have the opportunity to vote. So for me, that was a life-changing situation, because now I realize that I also have a space here. I also have a territory. I can be here. I live here. I can belong here. Let's see what's happening here. So I again try to connect with my communities outside my workplace, and I did so. So I started engaging, and that was very important for me, opening up. And then I became the Health and Wellness Platform Coordinator for the Massachusetts Women of Color Coalition, which it still makes me feel very proud. We are now organizing a mayoral candidate forum here in Boston because the elections are approaching. So I come learning a little bit about politics and how systems and structures work. So that's very liberating. And I'm also hoping to become a board member for the Boston Public Health Commission. So that's a story of liberation for me, to be able to express myself, to be able to share my skills, to be able to engage with the community and learn how I can participate in the ways I can. That's a story of liberation for me that I'm so proud to share with you. And then what else? Apart from that, I'm also a medical anthropologist. So my work in research and with the communities also involve a lot of reflection. I don't know if you have heard about reflexive anthropology, as the ethnographers being also the tools of investigation. And we are also vessels of culture. So we perform in a way that we actually impact research itself. So the fact that I was becoming a Black woman, a conscious Black woman in the diaspora, also affected my anthropological work in very many different ways. For example, always questioning, what it means to be a Black woman anthropologist in the diaspora here in Massachusetts, learning about mental health care, about immigrant communities, for example. Also, what it means for me to engage in different conversations about identities, lived experiences, forms of expressions, ethnographic performances, also academic syllabus as well. That's very interesting. Resist how I'm integrating or how I'm relating with my own schools, with my universities, with my professors, with my departments. And then the most important thing, my connection, my interest to connect with my teachers, my Black women anthropology teachers that I have been meeting along the way. There has been a real inspiration throughout my journey. So I'm also interested in learning more about it, learning more about the focusing of our own lives. I am focusing Black women, but it can be applicable to every community, but in particular, the study of our lives, our Black girlhoods, our roles in our communities, how we grow up in our social cultural context, identity, very interesting, Afro identities, communities Afro identities in Europe or Afro communities in Europe, how I'm going to re-engage now that I have acquired of this knowledge about Black diaspora, how I'm gonna reconnect again with my country, right, with the Spanish, how I'm returning back. So that's very, very interesting to look into. There is so much worlds of opportunities to explore. And also something that we're doing right now, like the preservation of memory, the preservation of history, the telling of the legacies, something that also is involved in my work as an anthropologist. So there was a very interesting question about what means liberation for you. So I had to say that liberation for me is telling your story. Really value your life, your story life. Connect yourself with the story, with our history. With our history. We are connected somehow. For me, liberation means to being grateful of our trajectories. You know, before I was crying, oh my God, why I left my country? Why? That's trauma. That was trauma right there. You know, I'm not gonna go into details why I left my country, but because that's another completely different story, a large history or story, I will say. But I was crying, but now I think I'm gonna embrace this. I'm gonna embrace this, and this is liberation. I'm gonna embrace my path, and I'm gonna trust, and I'm gonna learn from it and take advantage of it and appreciate and count your blessings. So liberation is love, liberation is community, liberation is respect, who you are, others, acceptance, who you are, accept others for what they are. Also, we are not alone. You know, we realize that we are not alone in the end, you know, this is a proof. So, so for me, liberation as well is connection with others and with our stories. And like I said, I'm gonna repeat it again. I am connected with the stories of the women in my family in Equatorial Guinea, the histories of Afro-Spanish women in Spain, the place I was born. I'm gonna repeat it. The sisters, my brothers that I met in the United Kingdom and in Europe, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Haiti, and now here in the United States. And what else I had to say? I had to say that this connection is real, and I got to experience when I participated in a literature event a few months ago with two writers, one from Puerto Rico, the other one from Haiti, and we actually talk a little bit about how our narratives are connected, how our stories, even if we come from different places, we share a lot of common things, you know, in our narratives, in our books, you know. So that was very interesting to learn about how we're connected in some way. And now here, right now where I am connected with Black communities, Black women from all walks of life. I am very welcome. We have come together because of our commonalities, and now we're working together. We're working together towards a lot of goals, you know. For example, we want to increase the percentage of women of color who are elected in positions of power or in positions of politics or in boards, commissions. We are also celebrating their success. We are also, appointed positions in local, state, and federal government as well. So this is basically something that we're doing right now. We are also helping our children. We have different platforms. So one of our platforms is also dedicated to education. So we are helping our children as well to reach global education, you know, in an effort to decolonize education or knowledge, decolonize education and knowledge. And we're also motivating economic power and economic independence. And also, we are also trying to reform the justice system. We are educating ourselves and we are educating the communities about the justice system locally and statewide, and hopefully nationwide as well. We are also focusing on spiritual and emotional health and wellness. That's very important, because if we are not recharged, if we don't take care of ourselves, we're not able to do what we need to do the work that we are assigned or we think we need to do. So this is me. And thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you so much for listening to my story, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll do a breath. Breathing in together on a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Holding and exhaling. Thank you. So I'm going to hand it to Ariel as we move over into our community Q&A. Before you go, Ariel, I just want to give people here an opportunity to take yourself off mute and turn on your camera. This is a time for all of you to speak, for you to share your responses, for you to thank people and ask your questions, or just say what it is that you need to say. So we're really creating the space here for you to share your voice and for you to just share yourself. So take yourself off mute and take your turn on your camera, whatever your background looks like. We don't care. We just want to see you.
Thank you, Lily, for that reminder. Yeah, so as Lily said, we're going to move into our Q&A portion. I would actually, we heard a little bit from Femi and just what he was playing in the beginning, but I'd love to invite him up and just have him kick off any sort of question or a conversation, or share what he wants to share, to get our Q&A started if he wants.
I feel like it's been an awesome experience to see this intersection with every story that I've heard, right? It's just like super beautiful. Let's see, starting with Carolina, actually, there's something so beautiful about being from one part of what I considered the new Africa, which is beyond any boundaries. It's beyond the continent. It's wherever we've gone. And we've related to people, and we've created histories that are super rich and, bordering on like multiple thousands of years old, but within the context of white supremacy and those actions, like 500 years. It's like we've built so much in so many directions that I just feel like there is a special magic that's happening right now where we're learning our stories. Like I'd told some of the people on this call prior to the show starting, I grew up listening to hip hop. I grew up loving dance hall before understanding that people in Jamaica and people in Brazil and people in Colombia and people in Cuba were like directly connected to where I was from. As somebody that is of the Yoruba ethnic group, it's been wild to find out, like way into my adulthood, that other people have carried this culture for hundreds of years. And it's like God knows for how long I listened to salsa before I was like, wait a second, why does that sound like Yoruba drums? What's going on, And to meet people who, for having grown up Christian, which I kind of left that faith when I was 17, it was always refreshing to see people who held like Africa in this high regard and understood the magic of the continent. And also, I think that since then, finding out about where Africans have been, there's the professor Ivan van Sertima, who I guess died like a decade ago, who wrote They Came Before Columbus, and his paper kind of started me on this quest to just find out, to realize more of how everything around me has already been like touched by like my forefathers in like a very beautiful way. So it's so awesome to hear all these stories and to feel like there's a huge awakening that's happening that might even melt the idea of nations. Like we might move past nations. We might be able to move past like ideas of like weird wealth distribution, just because we realize that I've never felt closer to humanity realizing that they're one people than now. And I feel like it's due, as they say in Coming to America, it's due to my African connection. So I think it's super awesome, and I'm so happy to be a part of this conversation. I think that's all I have to say, really.
I wanted to ask you, you were writing too, that idea of going to freedom and how that was really resonating with you. And
oh my God, that's just like, it's the idea of freedom as a place, right? Like, and what it means for like a place, like the concept of a place in the physical realm and the concept of a place in the spiritual realm. Like, what does that mean, right? Like, and how in the case, in my life, I wasn't raised an artist. I became an artist, or I started my artistic journey at 20, which is like halfway through my life. And it's like the idea that I was a creator happened at 20. So I felt like things had been hidden from me in the past, right? And so like, throughout that journey, it was like a rebirth. And in that rebirth, like, I feel like people and their magic became more visible to me, right? And I realized like, say as a DJ, for instance, when I started out, like I had to learn how to DJ, but at the same time, other people had to like give me the opportunity to DJ, and other people had to like bring me into their fold and like hand me records and give me ideas and like put me onto jobs and stuff. And like my friend Ambush, who I spoke to recently, who moved to Portland, who used to be in Philly, which I would love to add that is originally Lenni Lenape land that was colonized. But Ambush would invite me over to his house to just spin records. And that's how I learned how to DJ. You know what I mean? And I feel like, you know, if say I asked the universe to learn the skill, the universe sent this person to me and boom, boom, boom. So the idea of going to freedom is like, I don't know, this like it's such a powerful concept of like my desires and your desires, right? Pushing us and helping us grow towards this point where we are able to actualize our full powers, like what that means. You know, whatever that means for each of us and for us as a collective. And so that really resonated. I went to Rutgers University, which is huge in like central Jersey. Where I lived was predominantly white. So Chris's story just hit home so hard. Oh my God. Like, it's just like, so like I got followed home by cops multiple times, just, you know, walking home from class and like a cop car would pull up beside me and like escort me for 2 blocks. Now the Nigerian in me could like joke it off and be like, look, I got an escort. But, you know, in reality, like that's, you know, such a lopsided, you know, we grew up in such a lopsided environment, and understanding that we could easily be targets, right? In this like environment that was not designed for us. Like none of the bars were like made to like attract people, you know, that were not white. Like those, you know, none of like the establishments. It wasn't like, I felt like whenever I ran into another Black person, it was like we just immediately, you know, connected. And so Chris's story really resonated in that respect. Yeah, thanks for asking about that. That power, that idea of going to freedom is really, really, really powerful. Like, because I think it takes on different meanings.
Thank you. I'm going to hand it right to Darius. Like, I see your message, so please do speak. You have the floor and share.
Hi, everyone. I'm Darius.
Darius, thank you for telling me how to say your name correctly. Appreciate it.
It's fine. So I am a politically active musician in San Antonio, the current president of the University of Texas San Antonio Democratic Party, but I'm going soon. And I'm also a veteran in the military, and I'm going to get out of that as well. And I kind of want to explain the reasons why, because, before I forget, me and Cris go way back. Like, we were friends since like 11th grade. Like, the dude used to write and film videos for me back when I was just starting out. Like, he's always had this creative spark. And if he remembers, in 11th grade was the first time I actually performed on stage. And what was so unique about my first time rapping on stage was I did a remix of 3 songs, but each and every song was related to Black Lives Matter, right? There was J. Cole's GOMD, and I phrased it saying, I'm tired of this, in reference to police brutality, right? Then there was the 99 Problems remix saying 99 Problems While the Police Won, and a J. Cole song called Lost Ones, where I was talking about those we've lost due to police brutality. And I remember after high school, I went to college and I wasn't sure of what I wanted to do. In my mind, I was like, I just want to be political. I was like, I want to help the people. My family wasn't political in the slightest. All we knew was Obama, that's our guy, right? And don't get me wrong, I like Obama, but his presidency wasn't enough. We still need more, right? More action. I wasn't aware how expensive college was, so I joined the military. And somehow I ended up in San Antonio. The reason I'm resigning from the Democratic Party, UTSA, is the same reason I'm leaving the military, because I realized sometimes when we are trying to change the system within, it changes us in a way, right? I was recently deployed to Iraq, and I'll never forget that the George Floyd video when it occurred, because I was watching it and I said, this is crazy. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And the people next to me, I'll wait till more details come out. It's like, what? More details? What more details do you need? Right? And then I remember, he had drugs in the system. I'm like, so we didn't see the same video, did we? It became apparent to me the more time I spent out there how, because the military and both parties, regardless, are predominantly white, right? I realized influence from the outside can have a major impact. Creating your own organization, continuing to fight from outside of these big organizations. I'll never forget, so in the military, we have this game where you're supposed to stay aware of your surroundings at all times, right? So people come by like, do. Well, after the George Floyd incident, people would do the same game, but then they would say, hands up, don't shoot, or hands up, Black Lives Matter. And I'm like, they were doing it as a joke, right? It bothered me one day because I saw them literally in the desert, in a war zone, and a guy was doing the George Floyd challenge. Now, I don't know if guys know what that is, but it's them re-imitating the incident, and it didn't sit right with me because I'm literally in a war zone and these are the people I'm supposed to rely on, right? They have the walls that are supposed to protect us from bombs. They sometimes paint them with beautiful messages and things like that. And I remember my favorite one, it said, you matter. Because people who are deployed often commit suicide, right? And I would love to see it, but then when I would walk to the other side of it, on the back of it was the Blue Lives Matter. So I said to myself, how much does my life matter to you guys, right? Because I'm fighting alongside people I'm supposed to protect, people who are supposed to protect me who don't believe my life matters. So that's one reason why I'm getting out of the military, because I got what I needed out of it, but I feel like I need to shift my focus to other areas. And so with the Democratic Party as well, what I realized is there is progress that I've made and it's been good. But even within that party, there are certain elements that push back when you are trying to be very progressive with certain topics. How do I put it? So I've joined a lot of other organizations from the outside to help propose legislation and things like that to keep the fight going. And one of the things that made me get so politically active before I even started with those two orgs is, I'll never forget my grandmother. I was sitting down and I told her, I'm going to be a politician, I'm going to get politically active. And I'm from Louisiana, and she's like 90 something. Like, she's my great grandmother, technically. And she told me the story of how when she was a little girl, her father would have shootouts with the Ku Klux Klan because they were trying to intimidate people from voting. See, my grandma said, we ain't care, we still voting, we shooting back. And she was like, no matter what you do, always fight for our rights. Our right to vote is one of the most valuable rights. And I just want to inspire everyone to keep doing what you're doing, telling your stories, fighting for movements and causes that are progressing us forward as society. And overall, I just want to thank all of you for sharing your stories. Like, I enjoyed them. Like, I was doing a lot of stuff, but I was still listening, you know? So thank y'all for this event. And hopefully my story inspired y'all to continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Darius. Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm just gonna take a breath too. We have a couple more minutes for questions. Are there questions? Are there other people who want to take themselves off mute and come share? You don't even have to write it in the chat. I'm just going to leave the space open for a little bit for people to step in as they would like.
I'll tell the story of the fact that the only reason that I'm in this space is because of that guy. When I was in 11th grade and he was a senior, our school I had no interest in theater whatsoever in high school. I thought my idea of theater was dancing cats, and I was like, nah, like that's not the move. And so the theater department in our school hosted every Black History Month a night of poetry, music, and dance. And I don't know if he remembers this, but we used to freestyle and just do random little creative things in school. And he came to me just randomly one day and said, you know, we should both write poems for this event. We should both just write a poem, whatever, audition, see what happens. And I really had no interest in any of it, but I said, whatever. And I ended up writing, we both wrote poems. He ended up missing that audition because he had to catch the bus. But I went, and it's because of that I fell in love with theater and fell in love with writing. And I just kind of didn't stop after that point. So this is a full 360 moment. I kind of feel like this is one of those things like when they're interviewing someone on like 60 Minutes or something, and then they randomly interview someone from their past. So yeah, I just wanted to say that because it's not often that you get to thank someone directly for their contribution to your life. So thank you, sir, for your contribution to my life and for being a inspiration for what a man / Black man / friend / brother should and can be, and for your constant support and sacrifice. Yeah.
Cris, I have a question for you, because for me, you know, going to that place of freedom, or we asked other people, like, what does freedom mean to you? Like, as a performer, I remember, like, I was pretty much moved to Germany when I was 4 years old by the US military, and my parents didn't speak German. And I learned German in kindergarten. And I remember having this very like pivotal moment where I was trying to translate the lease that I would like from German to my mom. Like the landlord was speaking German to me, the 4-year-old, and I was translating to my mother. And I just like had always had this feeling of like, oh my God, I can't, like, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I belong. I can't really be myself. I feel so tight. And performing and being in spaces of performance, being in spaces that are expressive and that allow me to see the world is a way of freedom for me. And it has created a relationship to the journey of freedom for me in my body and my expression, etc. So I'm wondering, like, what was it like for you, like performing that monologue for us? Like, what is it like for you reading your own work? And like, does that feel like freedom to you? And how does that feel for you?
Terrifying, but in the best kind of way. You know, I don't perform that often. I kind of like to write something and give it to people who are much better at it than me. But when, you know, firstly, again, just to thank people, I have to thank Ariel for calling me and being like, you want to do this thing? And me being like, I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah, let's do it. And really being the one to be like, you know, if you want to perform it, you can. And me kind of, you know, following this kind of value that I have, that the things that make us uncomfortable are usually the things that are worth doing. And they're usually the thing that shows a piece of ourselves that wouldn't usually be out there. So yeah, it's expression in its greatest sense. It is expression, it is honesty, and it is rawness to kind of read something. Because when I write down, I've never written something that is absent of a piece of myself. Everything that I write has a piece of me in it. You know, I was not in a white frat in college. I did not have to do any assignment or anything. But I have lived with that feeling of either not feeling enough on one spectrum or not enough on the other spectrum. You know, I've been in spaces to where I'm like, oh, I'm not Black enough. And then I've been in spaces to where I feel like, do I need to tone my Blackness down? And it's simply, and it's an experience anyone of color has, this feeling. And at the end of the day, it's because that we are molded to feel unwelcome in our own homes and in our own societies. And I think that what matters the most is what you do with that discomfort and what you do with that confusion. And I honestly think that expression and getting out of your comfort zone is the best way to do that. Someone said it, and I don't remember who said the quote, but the quote is that everyone is born a poet. And I wholeheartedly believe that everyone is born a poet. What the difference between all of us is we just grow up and use that poetry in different ways. Some people use it in activism and in going out in the streets and actively fighting for better circumstances. Some people use it in law. Some people use it in medicine. Some people use it in writing. Some people use it in painting. We all have this story that we're trying to express and trying to leave our piece that will outlive us. And you know, whenever I'm out of my comfort zone or doing something like that, and you know, that entire time I'm performing, my heart is racing and I'm trying not to stumble over every syllable. But what in the back of my mind is always, you're not doing this for you, and you're not even necessarily doing it for the audience you're speaking to. You're doing it for someone who doesn't know that they can. You know, I wholehearted believe that the next Shakespeare, the next Maya Angelou, the next James Baldwin is sitting in a public school classroom right now, and maybe in a school with an underfunded arts program or an underfunded English department, and she or he or they don't know their potential because they're not seeing themselves, and they're not being welcomed with the resources that your private school kid might be. And they go home and their family might be telling them, okay, yeah, you want to be an artist, but like, we have bills to pay and we don't know if art pays bills. And so my hope is always, if I get enough out of my comfort zone and write something that's honest and honest to my experience, that kid will be much more accomplished and talented than I am can look at it and say, oh, well, he did it and he had all the cards stacked against him. I mean, because that's the truth. Nothing in my existence says that I should be successful. Everything points to I should be dead, in jail, or in a gang, or just doing nothing with life. And it really is because of the friends I've had in my life and the women that I've had in my life, which is why I had to shout out those people before I even started. It's because of that love and that sacrifice and that support of saying, no, I had the family, I came and I was like, yeah, I want to write and be an artist. And they were like, okay, we don't know how the hell you're going to do that. But if you love it enough, and if you do it, and if you are good enough at it, you'll find your way. And so, yeah, be uncomfortable, and get out of that zone, and the result will show, and it'll be felt. So I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah.
It did. Thank you so much. I have like 18 other questions for all of you. I was taking so many notes on my phone while all of you were talking, but I am getting also notes from our mixed space tech support that it's time to start moving into breakout rooms. So at this point, here's what's going to happen. We are going to take a quick group photo on Zoom just to commemorate this moment. So everyone who dares, take yourself, open up your camera, and we're just going to do a screenshot of gallery view of all of the amazing people that are here today that are sharing space with us. And Ariel is going to take our group screenshot. So Ariel, I'll give it to you to do the countdown and let us know when we're all supposed to be smiling. And then we have a little tiny goodie before we go into breakout rooms.
Okay. Great. I'm going to just count us down. I actually hope that TMS tech support also can help take this photo. So I'll just count down, and we need to retake it, we'll retake it. It's okay, everyone. This is what it is. So everyone look pretty or natural is pretty. And on the count of 3, we will do a photo. 1, 2, 3. Okay. That's how we take photos. Now, also, this is a great reminder to everyone to drop your socials in the chat so we can tag you and we can keep up with your lives and you can keep up with everyone else's lives, all of that good stuff.
So Cris was just talking about we're all poets, and I was in New Orleans when we were putting the finishing touches on this meetup, and I was talking to my uncle, and he was like, oh my God, I want to participate in your June meetup. And he wrote a poem for us to watch before we go into breakout rooms. And he told me to say that he feels like flowers symbolize beauty, and that flowers add so much beauty to the world. And if we were more like flowers to each other, that he feels the world would be a more beautiful place. And flowers in the garden were never meant to be separated. And so when one flower is ostracized, that is not justice. And he doesn't think that that's what God's plan is. And so for us to do that to each other, he says, flowers don't care who blooms right next to them. And we all share this planet just the way they do. So on that note, we have his poem to play before we go into breakout rooms.
My name is Lawrence Walker, and some say I'm a poet, and I'm kind of starting to believe it. For the last 4 years, I've amassed a good treasure chest, some diamonds, and I have to say, I owe it to my dear sister. She gave me a word from a very spiritual place, and sometimes we have to understand when God is using someone to talk to us. It's been a gift of mine that she brought to light. I didn't see it as a gift. I saw it as a hobby, a pastime. But now I appreciate her and I appreciate what I've accomplished. And you'll see me soon. Living like flowers. We are flowers united, joined by electrifying roots, to shock an unfair system that rules out you know who. Equal is as equal does to unchange all our hands, and use our minds to unblind our eyes to see the best in man. We vow to take this courage like fresh food upon our plates and strengthen the tide that binds us before it is too late. Spilling blood is not the answer, but love is what needed most. We raise our glass full of wine to give our hope a toast. That wine represents the blood of all the killings we spare, and our body of work would be an answer to show every child we care. They look for our directions, and being cast down gives way to up, where all who live for equality can experience a better drink from their cup. I wish before the sun sets, a better morning will rise anew, and I can say good morning world to all who believe it's true. A world of kissing cousins with hugs so abundantly, who changed an unfair system to peace and harmony.
Okay, it is time, friends, to just get into breakout rooms. You don't have to do anything. We're assigning you automatically. Zoom does this for us. I just want to say thank you so much. And when you get back, we have dance party with Femi and closing remarks. So stay on because it's about to be lit.
And breakout rooms are not recorded. So share anything and everything.
For those of you who come regularly, y'all know what it is. It's the whiteboard moment. And for those of you who are new, this is actually one of my favorite moments of the meetup because this is where we collectively put all our learning on this whiteboard. So it's pledges, it's commitments. This is what has stuck to you, phrases, quotes, learnings, questions, gratitude, anything that you want to leave here or take with you from this meetup. That's really the question. And I just want to name that this is actually a community exercise. So on the top of your screen, it says tech support is showing screen, but when you go to view options, it actually allows you to annotate, which for me says under request remote control, it says annotate underneath. If you click that, you can actually put text and kind of participate in the design of this whiteboard. And otherwise, if you want to, you can also put it in the chat or you could say it out loud and one of us can write it down for you. But yeah, this is the time for us to consolidate and to reflect and to name what it is that you learned today and what you're taking with me. While people are working on this whiteboard, I already see annoy people until they give you space. Yes. The new Africa. Yes. We were just saying before we left, going to freedom as if it's a place to go, a space to go. Okay. Yes, Kenja, absolutely. I got you. The instructions were just put in the chat, but yeah, this is our communal whiteboard section. And this is the time in the meetup where we reflect on what we've learned and where we share what we want to take with us or what we want to leave here. And so this annotating is a community exercise. If you go to the top of your screen where it says view options, you can click on that and then you can annotate and you can participate, or you can take yourself off mute and tell somebody else to write it down. So this is where we just kind of reflect before the meetup ends, before we close out. Okay. Folks are on their phone. Perfect. I don't know. I want a phrase, defy the odds. Yes. Someone will write that down, defy the odds. Let's do it. I'll actually do it. Yep, defy the odds. Perfect. We already got it. I do want to say that this is a donation-based event. And so the donations, what the Mixed Space does is we double all the donations that come in. And in case anyone missed it, the organization that is being donated to this month is EJI, Equal Justice Initiative. And they do really amazing work around history and liberation, and they are who we're donating to this month. So I'm gonna put their link in the chat again for folks to check it out. I just wanted to let you know that that's why it makes sense to donate here, because then the donation gets amplified by us after the meetup. Let's see, defy the odds, share stories, standing for what you believe with community. Sharing your story is liberation. Love is liberation. Trust your struggle. That is a big one. Thank you so much. Yeah, you can donate through Venmo. You can donate through Venmo. I will give, I can give you, Bean, like the Venmo. We do have a, why is my brain blanking? We have a PayPal that I am putting in the chat right now. And here we go. And aim for solidarity. Yes, Black is beautiful. We will write that. Yep, PayPal got me at the Mixed Space. Oh my God, going to freedom, yes. Stand together, yes. The donation link, I'll write it, we'll put it in the chat again. I mean, hey, there's not, can't say it enough. There it is. Yeah, one of the things I was interested in too is Ricky was saying, you know, we are ancestors to the future generation. So I'm wondering, like, what are y'all doing at the moment, or what have you decided to do your part, and to kind of like pay it forward as a current ancestor to the future generation. Ricky says, our freedom is fragile. We will definitely, yep, great. We'll definitely add that. So yeah, what is it that you do to pay it forward as a current ancestor?
I try to assist and help those who align with my beliefs get into office, you know, and just bring light to certain situations or incidents that are occurring. You know, a lot of things happen in small towns, and if we don't speak about it, you never hear about it, you know.
Thank you. Okay. This is kind of like a last call for all of our learning. I'm also just gonna plug our Meetup 2.0, which is happening on June 22nd. So that's next in 2 weeks. And it's gonna be with Cheryl, who was here earlier, and I missed my chance to shout her out. She's awesome. We're gonna be talking about African-American students with disability in schools and the school to prison pipeline. So what we do for our Meetup 2.0 is kind of like we continue the conversation in a more narrow way, a more streamlined way with one person on Instagram Live. So tune in for that. You'll see our posts on Instagram to participate and to comment, etc. And yeah, so that's what that's going to be about. And our next meetup is happening on July 6th. It's also a Tuesday night, and it's about food sovereignty. I always want to say it the German way, food sovereignty. And you'll be seeing our website live to RSVP for that, which is happening next month, July 6th. So that is kind of like all the info. Ariel, help me out if I'm forgetting anything.
We have a Meetup 2.0 coming up also.
I said that.
Oh, well, I was ready. So I was excited for the music. I guess I just totally zoned out and was ready for the music. Everyone drop your socials in the chat, which I'm pretty sure we already said. That's it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, one last thing is we have a feedback form for our meetup. So I would love for y'all to fill it out. We're posting it in the chat right now also, to just give us some feedback on what you liked, and if you have any ideas on how we can do these better, since they happen all the time, just put in the chat right here. And yeah, I mean, we're just going to leave the meetup open. Femi, we're giving you the floor. I might put some other things in the chat as they come, but let's get the party started.